My granddaughter said she overheard my daughter-in-law plotting. I confronted her at dinner. What she said stunned me. I was folding laundry in the fading late afternoon light, pressing shirts until the collar stayed crisp, when Ellie burst in, her voice trembled. "Grandma, Mom and Papa want to kill you." My heart jolted so violently, I nearly dropped the shirt I held. "What are you saying, baby?" I asked, but she didn't calm. Tears filled her eyes. "I heard them in the kitchen," Mom said. "If you don't sign those papers, she'll slip something in your drink so you'll never wake up." I froze. That kind of talk, people toss around threats when they mean them. I got to my feet, hands shaking. I swallowed. And once, my husband had turned to me, face harsh. "You live under my roof. Don't imagine that old bones entitle you to voice. Don't you dare open your mouth thinking you have rights." I steadied myself, walked to the kitchen doorway. Ellie clung to my hand. I could see her fear. And then I remembered something. The hidden recorder I had placed months ago in a drawer. A childish prank? No, it was insurance. If there was danger, I could catch whispers. I said quietly to Ellie, "Go to your room now, sweetheart. Stay quiet. Don't say a word." She nodded, stumbling back. I didn't yet know there were eyes in this house watching over me instead of against me, waiting for their moment to strike back at him. Kitchen door closed. Now I stand here, listening to the hum of silence. Every creak of the floor, every draft from the windows, I feel them. They think they can poison me. They think they can scare me into signing away a life. But I have seen darker nights. I have walked through shadows and come out still breathing. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I cross into the kitchen. The papers sit on the counter, trust contracts, property deeds, a transfer. Her coffee mug lies half empty. The room is cool. Her back is turned. I clear throat. "I heard the words," I say. She flinches. He looks up from his chair, features hard. I walk forward slowly. "Do you deny it, what she just told me?" My voice rings in the small kitchen. His gaze slides to her. She opens mouth, then shuts it. He stands. "You don't know what you heard," he says snidely. She turns to me, eyes darting. "Mom, it was a joke," she says, voice brittle. "You know how people talk when they are frustrated." I step toward her. "A joke that nearly ends a life? Don't insult me." He laughs, loud and cruel. "You've lived long. Maybe it's time you let us take over." She whispers, I didn't mean to scare you." I look at her. My bones ache, but my spirit is steel. "You said the words," I whisper. "You crossed a line. I won't let any of you cross again." Silence presses. Shadows in the corners feel sharper. I know this night is just the beginning. The morning light slipped through the curtains like it always did, gentle and gold, touching the old photographs on the mantel. But that morning, after what Ellie told me, the sun didn't warm the room. It only revealed the dust in the corners and the cracks in the walls, like secrets I'd tried to ignore for far too long. I was folding laundry in the den when I heard the front door creak open. "Mom!" Peter's voice hit me like a warm breeze. My boy, my only son. He stepped inside with a smile stretched wide across his face and his arms open. I braced myself. "It's been too long," he said, wrapping me in a hug. He smelled like airports and peppermint gum. "You're early," I replied softly. "We weren't expecting you until this evening." I caught the early train. I couldn't wait to see my girls. He meant Ellie and Lydia, his wife, his family. Before I could say anything more, Lydia appeared at the end of the hall, right on cue. She was dressed in soft pastels, her dark hair pulled into a low, perfect bun, not a strand out of place. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying or pretending to. "Peter," she whispered, rushing forward. "You're home." They kissed briefly, tender, performed. Then she turned to me. "Mom, I made your favorite tea, peppermint and honey. It's waiting in the kitchen." I didn't speak. I didn't trust myself to. Peter led me to the couch and sat beside me. His hands were calloused, strong, still warm from the train. "Mom," he said, "I know you two have had some tension." I looked at him, silent. "But I need you to understand," he continued. "Lydia loves you. She really, truly does. She's done everything for you. You're lucky to have her." Lucky. That word sank like a stone. He smiled, proud. "She dropped out of school when I got the overseas job, just so she could stay and take care of you. Can you believe that? That's love, Mom." My stomach turned. "She told you that?" "She didn't want you to feel guilty. That's the kind of person she is." Lydia stepped closer, holding her hands over her heart. "I didn't want to make it a big deal, Mom. I knew how lonely you'd be. I thought, if I could be there, you'd feel loved." Tears welled up in her eyes. Peter looked at me like I was supposed to clap for her sacrifice. "She sings you to sleep when your pain keeps you up," he added. "She's up before sunrise to make your breakfast. She calls me every week with updates about you." My throat closed. The guilt, it wasn't guilt. It was something heavier, something rotten. Because I remembered. I remembered being locked out of the kitchen when she cooked meals. I remembered her pouring boiling water too close to my lap. I remembered her whispering to Ellie that I was probably some undocumented stray who wormed her way into America. And I remembered Ellie, with her tiny voice shaking, saying, "Grandma, Mom and Grandpa want to kill you." Peter took Lydia's hand in his. "She's been incredible, Mom. I know sometimes you struggle to connect with people, but please see her for who she really is." I opened my mouth. I was going to say it. I was going to tell him everything. But Lydia beat me to the next move. She dropped to her knees beside him and burst into tears. Big, dramatic sobs. Her shoulders shook, her face crumpled. "I try so hard," she choked out. "I just want her to like me. I just want to be part of this family. Why does she hate me, Peter?" He wrapped his arms around her like she was made of porcelain. No, she doesn't. She's just old-fashioned. She doesn't always know how to show love." "I've done everything," Lydia whimpered. "I gave up my dreams, my education, my independence, all for her. And she looks at me like I'm trash." I looked away, my teeth clenched. Peter stared at me, hurt blooming in his eyes. "Mom, you have to stop this." "Stop what?" I said, my voice barely more than a breath. "This. Whatever this coldness is, Lydia is not your enemy." She sniffled and leaned into his chest. "Maybe I should just leave. Maybe I'm not wanted here." Peter's hand stroked her hair. "Don't say that. You're everything to me." I stood. "I think I'll lie down," I said. "Wait, Mom. I'm fine, just tired." I walked away, each step heavier than the last. As I reached the staircase, I turned back. Lydia was watching me. And just for a second, one flicker of a second, her face changed. The tears stopped. The sobs disappeared. She looked at me like a chess master staring down a losing pawn. And then she smiled. Not the smile she used on Peter, but the kind you use when you know the knife is already in and all that's left is the twist. I woke to the sound of a click. My phone snatched from my nightstand. The screen dark. I felt the emptiness of silence. I got out of bed. The door to my sitting room was shut tight. I tried to open it. Locked? That morning, I was brought food on a tray, porridge, fruit, tea, and set in a corner of the dining room, apart from the rest of the family. Lydia sat across from Peter. He smiled at her. No glance in my direction. I heard Peter say, "Mom, we want you comfortable." I knew what that meant. Later, Ellie crept to me through the hallway, voice low. "Grandma, Mom called you a survivor monster from the days of slavery, in front of the window." I heard it. Her eyes glistened. She whispered it, monster surviving through the chains of slavery, black ghost in their house. My heart pounded. I pulled her close. "Did she say that?" She nodded, tears on her cheeks. That afternoon, I asked Peter to bring me a newspaper. He smiled and said, "I'm sorry, Mom, but I promised Lydia she would help me with something. I'll bring it later." So I sat in silence, listening to voices behind doors, tissue paper whispers I could almost decode. Earlier, I had glimpsed Lydia's phone pressed against her chest, when she thought I wasn't paying attention. And last week I heard her in the hallway, muffled, saying into her phone, "Yes, all set, he is ready to act." Now I sat alone with Ellie at my side, her small hand in mine. Dinner was served. I was left on a chair by myself at the edge of the table set for me, and no one joined me. Lydia and Peter sat together at the center, laughing about his trip. I watched them. The laughter rang hollow in my ears. Ellie whispered again. I heard Mom say, "Let her envy us from her corner." My suspicion solidified into dread. I had let so many nights pass in silence, accepting the way she pushed me out. But now I saw the stage, the performance, the mask with perfect tears, the sacrifices she spelled out, the heavy guilt she hung over me like chains. After dinner, I asked Lydia to stay behind. She looked surprised, so perfectly surprised. I said quietly, "Why did you take my phone from me?" She lifted her palms. "I was worried people would hear. I just thought it best." Her voice soft, but her stance firm, defensive. I looked at her, heart cold. "You recorded me, yes?" She blinked. "No, I just meant to help." Peter came in then. "Everything okay?" I looked at him, then at her. "I'm fine, just tired." They walked away. Lydia paused and turned to Ellie. "Don't let Grandma hear more than she should." I heard that. That night in my room I lay awake, mind racing. The mask of care, the pretended tears, the whispered insults while I thought I slept, all of it was performance. I knew then that the war had already started, and I would not be silenced any longer. I waited until the dinner plates were set, the candles lit, and the house felt quiet in that pregnant, waiting way. My hands shook behind my back as I rose from my chair. No one spoke at first. Silverware paused, eyes turned. "Ellie told me something tonight," I said, voice firm. She said, "You and Robert want to kill me. Is that true?" A hush fell. Lydia's face went pale. She didn't speak. She looked at Robert, tears forming. He leaned back in his chair and gave a mocking, cruel little smile. "She wouldn't dare say that," he said, voice cold, eyes glinting in the candlelight. "And even if she did, so what? What use is an old woman like you anymore? You think we owe you life?" Lydia gasped, a single sob escaping. Peter sat frozen, his fork clattered on his plate. There was a moment of silence so deep it felt like the house swallowed its own breath. Then Peter's voice broke through. "Father, you will regret those words if you harm her in any way." His tone was low but tremulous, full of warning. Robert laughed, dry, bitter, scornful. "Regret? Oh, you threaten me now? You think you're some kind of knight? You think your mother deserves better than you gave her all these years?" Lydia started crying fully now, shoulders shaking. I would never harm her," she stammered, pressing one hand to her chest. "I stay up nights making sure she's okay. I do everything for her. Do you think I'd ever kill her?" I stared at her. My own heart pounded. Her tears looked so perfect, but the air tasted of lies. Robert leaned forward, menacing. "Actions speak louder than words. She hears your whispers. You're plotting when you think she's asleep. She knows more than you realize." Peter stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. His face was white, his fists clenched. "I will not let you harm her with words or hands or poison or trickery. If you so much as look at her wrong, I swear to God, I will make you pay." I stood too, hands trembling, but my voice held. "You think you're protecting me by silence, by fear? You think threats will keep me quiet?" I looked at Lydia, then Peter, then Robert. "Ellie told me. I heard her yourself, and I will not be afraid of shadows anymore." Then Lydia spoke, a soft voice cutting through the tension. "Mom, I've always feared that if I contradicted him, you'd be endangered." She met my eyes. I did this to protect you, even when it looked like I hated you. But I am on your side. I am not your enemy." Robert's face twisted. He rose slowly. "You've become clever, Lydia. You think you can fool me by tears?" He took a step forward. "I don't need your protection. I need your obedience." Peter moved between them, body tense. "You obey her, Or me? Or me and her together? He said fiercely. Robert sneered. You would defend her over your own blood? You would take his side? Peter's voice cracked. I would rather be wrong fighting for truth than silent in cowardice. For that moment, Lydia's tears faltered. She turned to me. I saw something in her eyes. Fear, regret, a tremor of fierce loyalty. Robert raised his hand, as though to strike. The candles flickered. Peter's face hardened. The whole table seemed to lean forward, the walls of the house holding their breath. Then Lydia stood too, voice loud, trembling yet unbroken. Stop it, all of you. This ends tonight. The clash would come. I felt it in my chest, sharp and taut. The night would mark a turning point, and I, old, bruised, weary, would not step back. I followed Lydia up the narrow stairs to my old bedroom, each step echoing. My heart pounded so hard I thought the walls would hear. She closed the door behind us and turned, her hands shaking as she pulled a phone from her jacket pocket. She tapped it, and silence cracked into sound. She hit play. Robert's voice filled the air. Every night, I dream of her not breathing. You help me. I'll transfer this house into your name. Then she won't matter. I froze, the pulse in my neck throbbing. He said it, in his own voice. He admitted it. Tears blurred my vision. I sank onto the bed, fingers clutching the sheet. Lydia's face was pale, guilt heavy. Mom, I didn't want you to hear it this way, but you deserve to know. I raised my head. Why? Why tell me this now? She swallowed. Because I can't watch him poison you, body or spirit. I thought if he was the only one you could trust, you'd survive. You deserve the truth. My knees trembled. The betrayal stung deeper than any slap from him. All the silent nights, all the times I swallowed fears, I had believed in them, in Peter's trust, in Lydia's lies. She knelt beside me. Tears streamed freely now. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I let him lie, but I love you. I've loved you from the moment I found out who you were. Her voice cracked. You saved me once. I promised to protect you, even if it meant wearing armor of hate. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest. Old wounds opened. I could feel the bitterness, the loneliness, the terror that had curled around me like a serpent. Do you really believe I'll survive this? I whispered. She placed her hand over mine. Yes, and I promise I'll stand beside you until you do. In that moment, I saw her differently. She was no longer the scheming daughter-in-law. She was a warrior, with scars hidden, forging protection from betrayal. I let the tears fall. I cried for years of silence. For the nights I feared my breath would betray me. For the trust I gave until it cracked. When I looked up, Lydia's eyes met mine, and I knew the tilt of justice had shifted. We left the room hand in hand. The house felt smaller now, but the weight on my chest was lighter. The war had begun, and I was not afraid anymore. The courthouse felt cold and echoing, as though the walls themselves were leaning forward, waiting for every word. I sat in the front pew, Lydia at my side, Peter behind her. The prosecution laid out the case. We submit recorded audio, hidden video, and signed statements. We accuse Robert Greystone of conspiring to poison and silence his own wife to seize property. Lydia stood to hand over a flash drive, her voice steady. This is the recording of my husband speaking plainly, and this video shows him plotting the act. She paused, looked at me. Mom, I did it for you. Robert's face darkened. He rose, pointing a finger at her. She lies. She seduced me, slept with me, stole information from me under the guise of affection. She manipulated me to trap me into doing what she wanted. Gasps echoed. Some leaned forward. Lydia's shoulders shook, but her eyes held firm. Peter sprang to his feet. That is a lie, he roared, voice raw with anger. He strode across the aisle, reached his father, and struck him square in the face. The crack of knuckles on skin made the air sting. Robert reeled, hand to cheek. Guards moved quickly to restrain Peter. For a breath, the courtroom froze. Then the bailiff ordered his arrest. But Peter, raising his voice for all to hear, said, "Arrest me now. I'll spend a month in jail if it means I protect my mother and my wife from the shame no man should ever endure." Silence swallowed the room. Robert's face was a mask of fury and disbelief. Then Lydia took a step forward. She turned toward me. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clear. "Mom, you might not remember, but 10 years ago, at that refugee camp donation tent, you gave me a stuffed bear. You held me when I cried. I was that girl, the girl you rescued, the one you supported in secret so I could become somebody." A hush fell so deep you could hear your own heart. I stared at her. The truth crystallized. The years of insults, the demeaning whispers, the sneers at my skin. She had carried all of them while protecting me behind the mask. The judge cleared his throat. "Given the weight of evidence, the recording, the video, the testimony, the court finds Robert Greystone guilty of attempted homicide, conspiracy, and property fraud. Sentencing to follow." Robert's legs buckled. He sank into his chair. Lydia collapsed against me, trembling. Peter, escorted away, looked back and gave me a nod, fierce, proud, loving. I reached out and held Lydia close. Her tears soaked my sleeve. I whispered, "You were always my daughter." Outside, the light was golden. I stepped onto the courthouse steps with Lydia on one side, Peter on the other, a new family, born from betrayal, but bound forever. I stood in the courtroom like a ghost anchored in flesh, my heart pounding with a strange quiet as the judge's gavel lifted the verdict. The air felt heavy, relief, grief, vindication, all mingling like smoke. I watched Lydia's shoulders buckle, the tears that had clamored for release now flooding down her cheeks. She dropped to her knees before me and opened her arms wide. "Mom," she said, voice breaking, "I owe you my entire life. If you had walked away, I would not be standing here. You gave me everything when I had nothing. Today, I return only a fraction of what you gave me." Her body trembled. She pressed herself to me, sobbing into my shoulder. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her pain, her fierce devotion, her long hidden scars. The courtroom felt suspended in that moment, cameras flashing, people leaning forward, breath held. And then Peter, from the defendant's dock, already restrained, tears coursing down his face, his voice cracked through the silence. "My wife, my mother, you are the two greatest women of my life." He looked at us both. The weight of years pressed into those words. The betrayal, the secrets, the lies, all collapsed in that one truth. Lydia continued to cry, pressing her cheek against mine. "I was scared, Mom, but I promised I would never let anything happen to you." I stroked her hair, feeling the softness, the fragility, the strength all at once. "You saved me," I whispered. The judge stepped down and approached. He nodded in our direction. "This court acknowledges the bravery shown, the truth revealed, and the strength in reconciliation." His words echoed like a benediction. Outside, in the halls of the courthouse, people swirled with cameras and murmurs. But for a moment, Lydia and I did not move. We remained in our embrace, as though the world could wait. Peter was freed a short while later under protective custody, his act of defense, though violent, seen by many as justified love. He walked to us in the hallway. Lydia had to stand. I steadied myself. He paused, sobbing. Then he wrapped us both in his arms, his mother and his wife entwined. Crowds parted. A flash of cameras. I felt their eyes on us, on our wounds, on our redemption. Lydia whispered, "I'm sorry I hurt you." I shook my head. "You never hurt me. You freed me." He kissed Lydia's forehead, then turned to me. "Mom, today, I see your worth. I always did." That night, I returned home with Lydia and Peter. The house looked the same, halls, walls, windows, but everything felt different. Hope lived here now. We sat in the living room, Ellie between us, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Lydia brought out a small box. Inside, the faded stuffed bear I had given her in that refugee camp a decade ago. She placed it in my lap. "You saved me then," she said. "Tonight, I want you to know I saved you too." I held that bear, tears flowing, and felt the weight of silence finally lift. The house had known lies, but tonight It remembered truth. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. I closed my eyes, our arms around each other, and for the first time in a long time, I felt home. I drove into Maine, as the snow fell soft and slow, a quiet promise breathing over the pines. The sky was pale steel, the road silvered. Lydia sat beside me, her hand in mine. Ellie in the back, bundled in a wool scarf, staring out the window at a land that would now, at last, feel like home. Robert's trial ended 6 months ago. He was sentenced to 18 years. The courtroom cracked his world. He would sit behind bars for every whispered plan, every betrayal, every poisoned intention. The weight of his sins pressed the steel bars around him. Peter, though, earned mercy. The judge recognized his act as one of fierce loyalty, not vengeance. He served 1 year of his sentence before being granted early release for good conduct and the nature of his offense, defending his mother and wife. The minute he walked out, I ran into his arms. He whispered, "I'm sorry I couldn't be there sooner," and I held him like a child. We sold the old house in the suburbs, all except my bedroom, my sanctuary. I kept it. But we moved to a dusty little town on the coast of Maine, the air salty, the pines whispering. We opened a small bookstore cafe, Teddy Bears and Hope, a tribute to that bear Lydia always carries, and the hope that never died in me. The sign hung wooden, painted in soft cream and forest green, Teddy Bears and Hope, a name that made me ache then smile. We filled the shelves with children's stories, diverse voices, immigrant tales, histories of resistance. We sold teddy bears in the corner, little ones, big ones, worn ones, new ones, all of them symbols. At first, the townspeople watched us closely, a woman with dark skin, a daughter-in-law once despised. But winter passed, spring came. One morning, I stepped outside the shop just after dawn, and an elderly woman called across the snow, "Mama Hope, do you open soon?" Mama Hope, that was the name they called me. Once, I had been whispered about as that illegal immigrant, the foreign burden. Now they said Mama Hope, a transformation pressed by love, truth, and survival. I stood still in the snow, the early sun warming my face, and tears came. Lydia came out beside me, her arms around my waist. Peter stood just behind, looking at us. Ellie skipped up, handing me a hot chocolate in a cup with a teddy on it. We opened the doors. People lined up for the first day. The fireplace crackled. The scent of coffee and old paper filled the air. I said to Lydia, quietly, "I never knew home could feel like this again." She squeezed me. "You've always had it. We just helped you reclaim it." That evening, after the shop closed, we sat around a small wooden table. Snow piled up outside the windows like piles of white dreams. Peter pulled out a framed photograph. Lydia and Ellie and me, standing before that courtroom, tears and smiles all mixed. He placed it on the wall above our fireplace. I took Lydia's hand. "You saved me more than you know." She whispered back, "You gave me a life." And Ellie looked up at both of us and said, "Grandma, Mom says she's staying for good now." I laughed through tears. "Yes, baby, we're staying." Snow fell outside. The wind sang through cracks in the shingles, but inside we were warm. Inside, justice had come. Inside, love had grown. Mama Hope. That's who I would be now. A mother, a daughter, a survivor, a woman whose name whispered dignity. The darkness of betrayal had passed. The winter of my life had softened into gentle snow, and for the first time, I believed in spring. The winter, after Robert's sentencing, arrived with an odd stillness. The snow fell gently over Maine, blanketing the town in silence. Our little bookstore glowed warm in that hush. Lydia's belly grew, rounding softly underneath her sweaters, a quiet promise in the quiet town. We called her Baby Hope. One evening, I closed up shop a little early. Peter and I walked home under pale street lamps, snow crunching beneath our boots. Lydia waited by the door, her face bright. She greeted us with a hug. "She's glowing these days." I placed my hands on her belly, feeling life stir beneath my palm. A miracle, a new chance. But in that same breath, I heard a flicker of dread, like distant thunder before the storm. A week later, in late afternoon, The phone rang in the kitchen. Lydia answered it quickly. I saw her hand tremble, her face drained of color. She whispered something. I heard a voice with venom, low, cold. Enjoy your peace while it lasts. Parole's been kind to me. I know your every move. I'll come for what's mine. She hung up suddenly and looked at me. Mom, he's out on parole. He's been given leniency. She paused, her tears falling. He says he'll get revenge. I stood there, heart pounding. My knees threatened to give out. Peter came running in. She handed him the phone. He listened, his face darkened. He turned to me, his eyes blazing. Mom, he's threatening to come after us again. Not just you, Lydia, the baby. I took a deep breath. I could feel lines in my face, years of fear, years of waiting. But now, they were maps of survival. I held Lydia's hand. We'll stand, we'll face him. The next few days passed in tense vigilance. We installed surveillance cameras outside the bookstore and home. We alerted the local sheriff's office. I gave them a copy of the phone call recording. I changed my walking route. Lydia and I no longer walked alone at dusk. Peter brought Ellie with him whenever he left us at night. One evening, I woke to the sound of tapping at the window. Our window pane had frost, but the sound was sharp. I rose, heart hammering. Lydia stirred behind me. Peter was away on a supply run. I crept toward the window. Outside, beneath the lamppost, I saw a figure retreating into darkness. A coat collar turned, a face I recognized. My blood froze. I stepped back. Lydia was awake, looking at me, her lips parted. Mom? I shook my head. Stay here. I slipped into the hallway, grabbed a flashlight. I peeked out the door. Footprints in new snow across the porch. A knob scratched. The front door, locked, but for how long? The next morning, the community awoke to news. The town sheriff's office confirmed that Robert had been seen in town the previous night, prowling near our shop. They caught him on one of our surveillance cameras, lurking outside, hood pulled low. The police moved swiftly. They issued a restraining order, made an arrest warrant ready. That night, Lydia went into labor. The timing felt like fate. I drove with her to the hospital. Peter followed with Ellie. Snow fell in heavy sheets, blurring the edges of the world. Inside the hospital corridor, half lit, Lydia leaned against me. I'm scared, she whispered. I held her hand. You have nothing to fear. We are together. Soon, she was wheeled into the delivery room. Ellie sat with me out in the waiting area. Minutes felt like hours. I knelt, clasped her hands, whispered prayers. Then crying filled the hallway. A new life entered our world. Lydia emerged with a baby in her arms. A daughter, pink and wailing, her first breath defiant. I looked at her, tears sliding down my cheeks. Hope had come. They named her Hope Marie. A name I chose. A light, a promise. I held her, my fingers tracing tiny eyelashes. Peter and Lydia beamed. Ellie watched with wide eyes. Just then, a guard entered the room. Lydia's face tightened. He spoke. Robert Greystone is under arrest for violating parole. He's in custody now. Threats against you and your child are part of his charge. Tears rushed. A weight lifted. The threat dissolved into nothing behind steel bars. In the days that followed, the town hailed us. A front-page article titled Mama Hope's New Dawn appeared in the local paper. Crowds came to the bookstore, buying teddy bears, books. People said my name with respect now, no more whispers of illegal immigrant. Now they called me Mama Hope. I visited Robert in jail once. He sat in the gray visiting room, glare heavy. He said nothing. I said, "You lost. Your bitterness died along with your lies." I turned and walked out. At home, I tucked Hope into Lydia's arms as she slept. Peter sat by the fire, reading to Ellie. The shop sign glowed outside, teddy bears and hope. Snow fell outside the windows. Inside, laughter, music on the radio. The world felt vast and peaceful again. I closed my eyes that night. In the quiet of my bedroom, I whispered, "We did it." And for the first time in decades, I believed. Snow fell in broad, soft flakes the morning after Lydia's letter arrived. It blanketed the town in quiet, as though holding its breath. I stepped out into the hush, breathing deep, letting the cold cleanse the last fears from my lungs. The bookstore glowed behind me, teddy bears and hope, its sign swinging gently in the wind. Inside, Lydia paced, cradling baby Hope. Peter stacked returned books. Ellie drifted between tables, clutching her favorite bear. I touched the envelope Lydia had shown me late last night. Under the door, written in jagged black letters, "You haven't seen the last of me." The photo inside was grainy, a figure in a hood lurking beneath our awning. Proof that even behind bars, Robert's shadow remained. My chin trembled. But fear no longer ruled me. I melted the last of my tremble into resolve. Peter came beside me. "We alerted the sheriff. We've tightened security. He won't get in again." His voice was steady. I nodded, trusting him. As dusk settled, we hosted our first anniversary celebration for teddy bears and hope. The crowd gathered in front of the shop, neighbors, patrons, children with plush bears. Strings of lights glowed overhead. Lydia held Hope, swaddled in a soft blanket, Peter by her side. Ellie sat on a crate, her small legs swinging, eyes bright. I climbed onto the makeshift stage, a wooden crate beside the door, and cleared my throat. The gathering was hushed. Rain of snow twinkled from lampposts. "Thank you," I began, voice cracking with emotion. "Thank you for being here tonight, for welcoming me, for believing in healing, for giving us this haven of stories and love." I looked down at my daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Hope is more than a name. She is our renewal. She is what it means to survive. The crowd watched softly, faces gentle in the winter light. I blinked back tears. We have carried burdens too heavy to name: loss, betrayal, silence. But in this year, with your kindness, we have rebuilt. We have chosen love over fear, community over isolation, hope over despair. Applause rippled softly. Lydia's hand squeezed mine. Ellie broke into giggles, offering teddy bears to passers-by. The world felt full again. Later, after the crowd departed, we stood near the fireplace in our home above the bookstore. Snow pounded the windows. Lydia's head rested on my shoulder. Peter sat beside us, arm around both of us. We spoke little. Ellie napped in the next room. Peace settled. Then Lydia turned, voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, thank you, for believing, for fighting." I looked down at the baby's sleeping face, then at Lydia's tired eyes. I brushed a stray curl from her hair. "You gave me life again," I replied, voice soft. Peter kissed my forehead, and Ellie peeked around the curtain, her eyes shining. We sat there together, 3 generations folded into warmth. At midnight I rose, walked to the window, watching snow swirl. The threats, the past, they felt distant now, powerless. I whispered into the dark, "You lost. We won." I walked back, slipping into bed between Lydia and Hope. She shifted, laid a small hand on my chest. I closed my eyes and slept, knowing dawn belonged to us now. That winter, the town no longer whispered of illegal immigrant. They welcomed Mama Hope. Children drew bears and books in chalk on sidewalks. "Hope lives here." The sign above our shop felt less like a title and more like a promise. In spring, Ellie would help plant flowers outside, bluebells and daisies. Hope would toddle between tables in the shop, giggling at picture books. Lydia would nurse her beneath the reading window. Peter would manage inventory, reorder titles, smile at customers. And I, old as I am, would read bedtime stories by lamplight, hear laughter echo down hallways, feel the warmth of justice finally settled in these walls. When people asked me how it felt to come that far, I would say, "They tried to bury me. They did not know I was a seed."